Today's guest is Nick Trusiak, a Montreal filmmaker who not only spent 4 years completing his degree in film school, but also worked professionally in the film and media industry for almost a decade. I had a great time chatting with him about these experiences and found there was some great insight into the real life of someone pursuing a career in film. So, coming to you now from the home of Nick, I hope you enjoy the interview. So today I'm very excited because this is not only going to be my first interview, but because we have a very special guest, Nick. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Zach. Thanks for coming over.
So my first question is, do you believe film school is necessary for success in the industry, or is it all about who you know?
That's a good question. I find a lot of student filmmakers get asked that question a lot to people who are established and whatnot. I think it's like a two-pronged answer. It's yes and no. It depends on what you make of it. So the thing about film school is a lot of the time you go there to basically make connections, which will eventually help you secure jobs and other sorts of stuff like crew for your projects and whatnot. So I would say it's hugely beneficial in that aspect, and like a lot of the people are there to do that.
Like meeting people.
Meeting people, yeah.
Yeah.
And I would say no if you're going into it expecting to work right out of school. So it's really it's kind of a gray area answer. I don't have a definite answer, but like for me personally, I would say it helped, but it also didn't help.
Did you feel like there was a lot of, I guess, effort from the school to sort of introduce you to people in the industry and sort of help you in that way?
The thing with me, and I'm gonna be honest, like my film school experience was kind of ruined by the pandemic. That's for me. So I don't really have like the best. I'm not the best person to ask because I didn't get to experience like film school like on boots in the ground for 4 years straight. Like I started in 2018. I did my first 2 years. I was able to work on film sets. I was able to meet people and great people like that. Some I still keep in touch with, some I don't. Yeah. But I find like with the pandemic, it just kind of ruined everything. It took that aspect of networking and doing stuff with peers out of the equation, and it kind of fucked everything up for a lot of people, me included. And I have this kind of rumination sometimes, like if it didn't go that way, maybe I'd be in a different situation. But it is what it is, man. That's so yeah.
Yeah. Okay. In the time that you were there, though, do you feel like film schools were doing enough to include newer forms of media like YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok videos in their curriculum? Is this something that you think would have been valuable?
In my case, it wasn't part of like the curriculum. We focused on narrative filmmaking, the traditional way. We learned all the basics. We went, we did. There was three segues when you started films. So your first year, everyone was together. They all did their own films. Second year, everyone branched off into either experimental, documentary, or fiction. I was in fiction. So in every discipline that you chose to pursue, you learn how to make those films. And
Right.
in my case, for fiction, there was no emphasis on TikTok or YouTube or anything. It was more focused on the artistry versus, the kind of status quo and the trendy stuff. So, I mean, a lot of that stuff that you learn definitely applies, but I don't think there was an emphasis. And for me personally, I didn't think I needed to have that instruction because I wanted to make narrative fiction films. Yeah.
One thing I wanted to sort of ask to sort of summarize this film school part of the interview, if there was one opportunity you felt that you missed out on in film school, what would it be? Maybe it could be like a class you wish you had more of, or anything really.
Yeah. So like I said before, like we got kind of shafted by the pandemic that ruined a lot of stuff for a lot of people. I wish that it never happened. So that's one thing. I wish that I could have spent my time networking more. I was kind of in my own bubble, and like the pandemic didn't help, and no one felt motivated to do anything. I mean, I did after things started loosening up, I did do a project with like a lot of old classmates, and that felt really good. I wish I had done that more.
What does networking sort of look like in the school ecosystem?
It's just honestly, it's making friends.
It's mostly out of the classroom?
Yeah, out of the classroom to talking about personal projects, despite being in courses together. Taking advantage of the resources they had. yeah, and just creating a bubble.
Were like the people who want to be writers hanging out together? Were the people that wanted to be directors hanging together? Were fans of certain directors hanging together?
Yeah, I think that if you like in your second year when you branched off into your own kind of discipline, like experimental documentary and fiction, like everyone did kind of have similar interests, and like we did enter those disciplines with that in mind. That everyone here has a certain kind of love for an aspect of filmmaking. Like I love fiction filmmaking. I still do. I still do it in my spare time. I still work on stuff. So I found myself kind of, I guess, in a clique with those people. We all had similar interests.
For sure.
I wouldn't say like people wanted to be directors hung out with directors. I think everyone kind of just wanted to work together and
Great.
I mean that's the whole thing about film school is like you're learning how to make a film from the bottom up, right? I mean everyone's like when I was doing in second year when we were doing our projects in the winter, I did like 3 different roles on a film set. Like I was pulling focus for one project. Next project I was the first AD. The third project I was the script supervisor. So I think we all wanted to just try those things to understand how it worked because it's a machine, man. Like and it's has to be well oiled. Everyone has to do their part and
nice.
Yeah.
So, sort of switching gears, I want to talk a little bit about because after film school, you obviously work full time in the film industry.
So I'm gonna just do like an abridged version
for sure.
So after I graduated, I started a position at a visual effects company, and I was a production assistant. So I was doing a lot of like the administrative stuff. But then, unfortunately, that the Hollywood strikes kind of put a breaker on all the projects kind of going out, and then a lot of people got laid off, and and I'm not hiding anything. This is what happened. This is exactly what happened.
History.
Yeah. And then so then it just things went belly up, and like it went from there was a huge hiring boom after the pandemic. Like everyone was getting hired. I got hired like straight out of uni, and did that for 2 years, and then the strikes kind of ruined everything. So it just kind of there was like a big 360 that happened, and a lot of people got laid off. I lost my job, but now I'm doing work for a nonprofit. It's more creative. I'm doing a lot of like I'm doing a lot of social media stuff for them. That's related to what
You're
I studied.
Working in the media industry.
I'm working in the media industry. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, this is sort of a great lead into this next question, which is what are some of the major differences between getting a more traditional job versus one in the film industry? For example, where did you hear about it? What was the hiring process like? And do you have any tips for people looking to get started?
Okay, so when it comes to positions that are more again above the line, creatively, more creatively inclined positions. A lot of that is not your typical kind of send a CV and here like let's do an interview and stuff. I'm sure there's like an interview process, but it's not like that. Getting gigs as a creative is it's less stable. Like you're not working at a I mean there's some cases where you do work for an organization and everything, but like the traditional sense, like if you're shooting fiction films and everything, it's more about you're doing it's project by project. And then like obviously you get rehired based on who you know and whatnot.
Right.
In my case, as a visual effects worker, I was working for a visual effects studio, so that was more traditional. You're working in a corporate environment. You have deadlines to hit. You're providing a service for clients like Disney and Netflix and stuff. So there, it's more structured. So it really depends where you're at.
Where did you hear about a lot of like these jobs and stuff?
I mean, in my case, like, and my former company, like one of the biggest visual effects companies in the world. I mean, and like we have an office here in Montreal. I found out about them through, LinkedIn. It was like a job board and I applied, and it was more of like a case of, okay, I'm about to graduate and I want to start a job in the industry in any capacity. I didn't care what I was doing. I didn't care if, I was shoveling shit for 8 hours. I wanted to get in somehow. And a visual effects house had like 3 positions open for production assistant. I was like, this might be a good thing, so I did that.
And what was that like hiring process like?
It was like a standard. It was so
Yep.
In visual effects, usually how it goes, it's a standard kind of corporate hiring process. I was hired very quickly because they needed staff. So I was hired like after my first, it wasn't even the interview, it was more of an introduction. Like, oh, like, what's your background? You able to work these hours and everything. And they needed people ASAP. So I got in really quickly. I signed my contract the day after my interview, basically.
Yeah.
In terms of like the film industry, if you're creative, if you're like a cinematographer and stuff, it's a little different. Like you have to build a reel, you have to, work on set, you have to learn how to operate cameras, you have to know camera systems, you have to know lighting and stuff. It's a little different than what I was doing.
Right.
So
it's a lot more, I guess like there's a lot more that goes into getting a steady job in those
Yeah,
positions.
it's I wouldn't say it's working on set's not steady. I
Yeah.
wouldn't say that's the least steady part of of working in film is working on set. The
Right.
hours are crazy.
So that was actually something I wanted to ask you. So you were saying that, you know, when you came out of film school, you were extremely eager to just start working, take kind of anything on. And you know, when starting out in film, it's common to face low budget or unpaid opportunities like
Yeah.
internships. What would you suggest to someone trying to navigate these situations, and when would you say the experience is worth it?
Um, I guess if you're doing internships, try to get them done when you're in school, because once you're out in the world, like, you know, you're a professional, you know. You want to start working, you know. I mean, I wanted to be director out of university, like professionally and stuff, but I found that the sacrifices you had to make personally were just not worth it because I had bills to pay, and like
Yeah.
to me, that's still priority number one. I mean, you know, I didn't, I moved out. I needed to support myself financially, so, and I still want to make my own films, but I don't want to do it in the sense that like I want to, you know, make it big or anything. I want to make my own films at my own pace
For yourself.
for myself.
Yeah.
You know, and that requires effort. Like I'm not gonna just make a shitty movie. You know, I'm still gonna do it properly, but it's not for. I'm not doing it for financial gains, because like, you know, in order to pursue that, I mean, there's a lot of factors that have to kind of you have to take into account. You know, there's
Yeah.
a lot of sacrifices you have to make to become,
Of course.
you know, a director or whatever. You know.
So talking about making your own sort of movies, films, short films, for someone that maybe comes to you and says, hey, you know, like I kind of want to start making my own videos, either for YouTube or short films, what are 3 pieces of equipment that you would recommend just like as a good base to start out with besides a camera?
Yeah, a good computer would be great, because if you're going to be putting this stuff together yourself, you're going to have to like process the information, and like, you know, having a platform to do that would be great. A good editing software. I mean, that's not really a physical thing, but a good NLE, a good nonlinear editing system. I mean, your phone, right?
Yeah.
And that's, you know, you can do a lot of stuff with phones nowadays, and you don't have to drop like. I've shot some stuff on my phone, and it looks pretty good.
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely.
It looks- yeah.
We're shooting this
Yeah,
on phones.
I mean, whatever. I'd say a lot of people underestimate the power of sound. They kind of put that as an afterthought. So if you're doing stuff with talking heads, or like you want to record good audio, I mean, having that capacity would be
invest in good audio equipment.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
like just invest in time to make your film sound good in post, even if you don't have
the best
proper-
gear.
the best
Yeah.
gear. Like, you can do a lot of stuff in post. Like, you know, a lot of films nowadays, a lot of the stuff that you hear on screen was done in a studio.
No,
you know?
sound is very, very important.
It's like it's so pivotal, you know.
yeah.
It's I think if you want to start out, it's as accessible as ever, but like, you know,
The barrier of entry
the barrier of entry is now becoming
higher and
higher and higher.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
competitiveness,
yeah. Of
everyone,
course.
everyone can do it now.
Of course.
Everyone can do it. Everyone
That's-
does it.
that's it.
You know,
Yeah.
so it's difficult.
Yeah.
You know, so
Which actually leads me into my last question. Right now, you're saying that it's becoming more accessible, the competition is going up. Where do you see the film industry in the next 10 years?
wow, that's a big question, Zach. That's a huge question. Holy shit.
You don't have to be right. You don't have a crystal ball, but where do you think things are going?
I'm gonna focus on just like a particular aspect of where it's going. I find that like after the pandemic, there was a huge fear that the whole movie theater experience was kind of disappearing, and like my girlfriend and I go to the movies all the time, and like there's a big emphasis on streaming, and like you hear this from a lot of filmmakers, and I'm not trying to be pedantic, I'm not trying to be preachy, but I'm happy that we kind of stopped that trend in its tracks, and that like movie theaters now becoming more of like a thing again, you know.
Well, it seems like that what they almost have to offer is what you can't get at home.
Exactly. So there's a huge emphasis on that, on going to the theater now, and I think it's
Right.
important to, you know, support filmmakers and stuff. You know?
And in terms of like the career aspect with, you know, emerging technologies and things like AI and automated softwares, do you think this is having a big effect on, you know, the job market in the industry? Do you think that there will be more jobs, less jobs in this industry available in the next 10 years?
That's a huge issue right now in the film industry, and I've been like doing a lot of reading about it and stuff. And there've been like a lot of examples of films kind of using AI for certain elements. I think it's concerning. I don't think we're at the point where it's replacing people's jobs yet, but I think
Right.
it's at the point where people are starting to kind of raise the alarm bells that, you know, this could be potential outcome if we keep using the technology improperly.
Yeah.
I gotta stir my sauce. Give me a second.
No problem. All right, we're back from stirring the sauce.
Yeah, sorry. It's like that scene in Goodfellas where like Henry Hill keeps telling his brother in the wheelchair to keep stirring the sauce while he's out like doing cocaine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like that, but you have to stir your sauce. It sticks to the bottom, and if it sticks to the bottom and burns, your sauce gets ruined.
100%.
Every cook will tell you that.
You can't spoil the sauce.
Don't burn the Don't burn the sauce.
So we were just sort of wrapping up here. I'll be linking all of Nick's stuff in the description of the video if you guys want to check out some of the stuff that he's worked on, and give him a follow. And hopefully we'll have you on again.
Thanks, Zach.
All right. I don't know what to do to sign off, but yeah.
Peace.